The whole scene unfolded when I went to the company to look for Ryan. The moment the elevator doors opened, I heard shouting mixed with the sounds of hitting and slapping. It was Mrs. Ryan's voice. "Ryan is already married. Why did you come back? Your mother already stole Ryan's father. Now you want to come back and steal my son too, you bitch." It was the first time I had ever seen Sophia, who had always been graceful and respectable, lose control like that. Ryan stood firmly in front of the girl in his arms, shielding her like she was some rare and priceless treasure. I opened my mouth to call out his name, Ryan, but someone suddenly shoved me, and I stumbled into the corner of a table. The words I was about to say turned into a cry of pain. Ryan looked over at me and instantly let go of the girl, as if he wanted to come over and help me. But the very next second, when he saw Sophia pick up a potted succulent, he didn't hesitate. He turned back around and shielded the girl again. The flower pot landed squarely on his head. Blood began to stream down from his scalp, and in that instant, the entire room erupted in chaos. I heard Sophia cry out his name in anguish. "Ryan?" The girl in his arms was on the verge of tears as she asked, "Are you okay?" And from his cousin Melissa came a barely audible sigh. "It's okay, as long as you're not hurt." The whole ridiculous drama ended with Ryan knocked unconscious and rushed to the hospital. Before I left, he held onto my hand. In the end, he only managed to softly whisper, "Jenny." Sophia stood beside me and said, "Come home with me and I'll explain everything. But first, go check on Ryan at the hospital." It was already evening when I arrived. Standing outside the hospital room was Jordan, one of Ryan's friends. As soon as he saw me, he was about to say something, but I tightly grabbed his wrist. He winced in pain and said nothing. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard the girl inside speaking sweetly. "Do you want to try a bite? I learned how to make it just for you." Ryan lowered his eyes and let out a soft sigh. "Mia, you don't have to," he didn't finish. The young girl's eyes were brimming with tears, looking incredibly pitiful and lovable. Ryan didn't say another word and obediently swallowed the spoonful of porridge she fed him. I didn't miss the flash of pain on his face. He'd burned his mouth. Mia didn't seem like someone who was good at taking care of others. Jordan tugged at the hem of my shirt with his other hand, his eyes drooping. I let go of the wrist I had been holding. The skin at his wrist was already red. He softly apologized. "It's okay, sis. That's just how Ryan is." He paused, as if he wanted to say more, but then a commotion rose again from inside the room. Mia sounded like she was crying. "I just couldn't stop worrying about you. You got hurt because of me. Don't I even have the right to care about you?" "Ryan, we're so in love." There was the sound of something rustling inside, like someone being pulled into an embrace. Then the voices dropped again, soft as lovers' whispers. "Sis?" Jordan called me again. His voice trembled slightly. "Don't cry." But when I touched my cheeks, tears were falling in big drops. It was so humiliating. I lowered my head, my vision blurred with tears. "I'm leaving." I was the one who had a flash marriage with Ryan 3 years ago. I had just returned home after finishing my studies abroad, and my parents had thrown a welcome party for me. Ryan came to pick me up. Even the gentle instrumental music playing in the car couldn't ease the awkwardness between us after 3 years apart, nor the nervousness of being alone with someone I'd secretly loved for so many years. On the road, we chatted here and there, not saying much. Just as we were about to get out of the car, my seatbelt suddenly got stuck. I fumbled with it clumsily. Ryan chuckled and leaned over to help me undo it. A faint sandalwood scent lingered in the air. My body tensed up almost instantly. When Ryan looked up and saw my reaction, he reached out and tousled my hair. "We haven't seen each other in a few years. Why are you acting like a stranger? Didn't you say you wanted to marry me when you were a kid?" Ryan almost never joked like that. My face turned crimson, and my heart felt like it was going to leap out of my chest. That surreal feeling lingered all the way into the party. During the event, he stood there holding a bouquet, and in front of both of our families, he confessed to me, right under the glittering lights. The young man I had secretly loved for over a decade had bright eyes and a soft smile at the corners. "I finally waited long enough for you to come back," he said. It was a moment straight out of the countless dreams I'd had as a teenage girl. And just like that, those dreams became reality. At the time, I thought to myself, I must be the happiest person in the entire world. Our married life was sweet too. Ryan was thoughtful and attentive. He'd make me brown sugar tea during my period, stay by my side without leaving an inch when I was sick, and took care of every little detail in our daily lives. I thought that if he treated me that well, I should treat him even better. It wasn't until later that I realized this tenderness, this patience, was something he had slowly cultivated, bit by bit, for someone else. If a friend hadn't sent me a post they stumbled across online, I might have stayed blissfully in the dark for the rest of my life. "What do I do if I've fallen in love with my dad's mistress's daughter?" the post said. "I know it's wrong, but I can't stop myself. She's so adorable, like a child. She always clings to me, acts cute, and says she wants to be with me forever." My mom found out about us. She didn't approve. She threatened to kill herself if we didn't break up. I didn't want to make her sad, but I didn't want to hurt Mia either. Commenters responded, "Are you insane? Think about how heartbroken your mother must be. Support the OP. Why should people in love have to separate?" My mom was too intense. She came at me with a knife and asked me to choose her or Mia. In that moment, I realized how much my mother had aged. I couldn't betray her. But what about Mia? Didn't you say you'd be with her forever? I didn't want my mom to be hurt anymore, so I broke up with Mia. But my mom still worried. She started urging me to get married. The girl next door who grew up with me was coming back from studying abroad. My mom always said she liked me. She told me to marry her quickly, so I proposed to the girl I'd known since childhood. The comments blew up. "What are you doing? You've hurt too many people. What about Mia? The person you've hurt most is her." The post ended with the original poster replying to one final question. "I'm getting married today. From now on, I'll be someone else's husband." Someone asked, "What about Mia? Do you still love her?" He replied, "Yes." The date of that reply was July 14, 2022, at 10:15 a.m. That was the day Ryan and I got married. At 10 a.m., I was sitting in my room, wearing a beautiful wedding gown, my makeup flawless. My best friends were standing by the door, waiting to block the groom in that playful tradition. I kept thinking to myself, I'm about to marry the man I've loved for 10 years. How wonderful, but Ryan hadn't come back until very late that day. By the time I finished reading the entire post, my face was already soaked with tears. The air in the room felt suddenly thin, like I couldn't breathe. I thought I'd go down to the garden for a little air. Under the swaying shadows of the trees, I saw a familiar figure in the distance. Ryan stood beneath a street lamp. Mia was there too, looking up at him, standing very close. "I can't do this anymore, Mia," he said. "I'm already married. Jenny's a good woman. I can't let her down." The dim streetlight softened Mia's features, and she looked like she was on the verge of tears, holding it in with all her might. "I know. The only reason I came back was because I couldn't forget you. Just working at your company, getting to see you every day, that was already enough. I shouldn't have asked for more. Ryan, I'll control myself." Her last sentence was broken and shaky, no longer coherent. When Mia's tears finally fell, I saw the pain in Ryan's eyes more clearly than ever. Before he even realized what he was doing, he had already pulled her into his arms to comfort her. It was such a familiar scene, because whenever I cried, he used to hold me just like that, gently wiping away my tears, whispering soothing words. After every argument, I'd always receive a gift from him, just like a child. I always told him it wasn't necessary next time. But he'd just smile gently while holding me and say, "As long as it makes you happy, Jenny, I'll do anything." The wind roared past my ears, but I could hear it clearly, the sound of my heart shattering. That day, I wanted nothing more than to rush over and confront Ryan, but instead, I broke down, crying alone. Then I calmed myself and chose another path, to let them be together, to let them have their love. But how could the world be so kind? After leaving the hospital, I didn't go home. I drove straight to my parents' house instead. When my mom opened the door, she froze for a moment, then smiled. "What brings you back all of a sudden?" I forced a smile. "I suddenly missed you guys." She glanced behind me. "Where's Ryan? Didn't he come with you? He's in the hospital." "What happened?" "He hit his head. The doctor said it's nothing serious." I left out the part about Sophia. "Why aren't you staying to take care of him?" Mom asked. her smile slightly awkward. She'd always been open-minded. Even though she'd clearly known about my feelings for Ryan, she pretended not to notice. She even went out of her way to bring me up in front of him. "Jenny, after all those years of pining, you finally got what you wanted. You better hold on to it," she'd said once. But it wasn't true. It wasn't finally getting what I wanted. I only just found out that what I thought was luck was really just Ryan settling through marrying me because he couldn't have the woman he loved. I had liked Ryan ever since I was a kid. My parents were always busy. When Ryan came home from school and saw me sitting on the doorstep waiting for them, he would bring me over to his place, help me with homework, or watch cartoons with me. That one night, my parents didn't come home until very late. I had fallen asleep in his room while reading comics. I woke up suddenly to the sound of thunder rumbling outside, lightning streaking across the sky. I'd had a nightmare, and the thunder scared me again. I started crying and screaming for my parents. Ryan came rushing in from the room next door. He'd even lost one of his slippers. "Jenny," he called out. My face was a mess of tears and snot. Ryan couldn't help but laugh, then pulled out some wet wipes to clean me up. While wiping my face, he comforted me. It's okay. It was just a dream." But the more he comforted me, the harder I cried. Eventually, exhausted, I fell back asleep. I was still holding his hand. I remember him standing by the bed telling me he'd stay with me. Would he stay with me forever? Always? Always stay with me? He said he would. I always knew that promises made so casually don't really count. But if love were something you could control, I wouldn't have chased after him like a moth to a flame for all those years. I didn't go to the hospital to see Ryan again. When he asked, I just told him I'd gone back to my parents' place. His injury wasn't serious. A few days later, he was discharged. That day happened to be New Year's Day. He came to pick me up for dinner. He stood at the door, tall and gentle as ever. When he saw me, his eyes lit up with a familiar smile, warm like before. "Jenny, you look beautiful today." Ryan was never stingy with compliments. I used to feel embarrassed by them, but over time, hearing them made me more confident. And the more confident I became, the more I liked him. I lowered my eyes to avoid his gaze. "Let's go." He paused for a moment, then politely greeted my parents. After Sophia had calmed down, she went back to being the kind and composed elder I'd always known. She didn't say much about what happened that day, and I pretended to forget as well. She was happy to see me, taking my hand as she said, "Jenny, I bought some necklaces and bracelets for you. Come try them on. Let the guys handle the kitchen." Ryan helped me hang my coat on the rack, smiling. "Go keep Mom company." The jewelry Sophia picked sparkled under the lights, almost blindingly bright. She helped me try on each piece, complimenting me every time. "It's perfect for you." One after another, she praised them all. By the time we finished, dinner was ready. Everyone sat at the table in harmony, but the atmosphere felt oily, slick, like each of us was hiding something. Then, the moment the doorbell rang, I moved faster than Ryan to answer it. Standing outside was an uninvited guest, Mia. Mia looked like she had rushed over in a hurry. There were tiny beads of sweat on her forehead. While I was still frozen in shock, Ryan had already walked up. "Jenny," he said. The moment Mia saw Ryan behind me, her tears fell instantly. "Where did you go? You got discharged and didn't even tell me. Do you know how worried I was?" I turned to look at Ryan. He tried to keep a calm expression and cleared his throat lightly. I looked at him and asked, "Ryan, who is she?" Ryan didn't respond. Mia pushed past me, flustered, and ran straight to him. At the dinner table, both my father-in-law and mother-in-law saw her. I caught the immediate change in Sophia's expression. But Ryan's dad, sitting beside him, quickly placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is my friend's daughter. She and Ryan used to be close." "Really?" I smiled. "Ryan and I have been childhood friends for over 10 years. Funny, I've never seen her before." "Oh, you were abroad during those years, that's when they met." I gave a small smile and didn't bother exposing his lie. "Well, since you're already here, stay and have dinner with us," Ryan's dad said, then got Mia a chair and filled a bowl for her. It was supposed to be a family holiday, but suddenly an outsider had barged right in. Mia sat down beside Ryan and, right in front of Sophia, kept placing food into his bowl, acting overly familiar. When she picked up some mushrooms to put in Ryan's bowl again, I reached out and blocked her. He doesn't like those. I looked at her calmly, and then took away the carrots she had already given him. He's allergic to carrots. The smile on Mia's face froze, and the atmosphere at the table suddenly stiffened. It's fine, Ryan quickly said, breaking the awkward silence. As if to prove he didn't mind, he picked up a piece of poached shrimp and placed it in Mia's bowl. Exactly what Q had said was her favorite in that online post. Mia's embarrassment instantly vanished and was replaced with joy. You still remember what I like? Then Ryan, as if suddenly remembering I was there too, picked up his chopsticks and placed a piece in my bowl. Jenny, try this. It's good. But I didn't like it. I liked spicy salt, pan-fried, barbecued, heavily seasoned. I didn't like poached. I watched Mia dip the shrimp in sauce and eat it in one bite, her face full of happiness. And just like that, it hit me. Those who are loved never have to be cautious. Just like Ryan toward Mia. And like me toward Ryan. The food in my mouth suddenly tasted bland and hard to swallow. Even looking at the rest of the dishes made me lose my appetite. I put down my chopsticks and said, I have something else to do tonight. I'll be going now. Where are you going? Want me to drive you? Ryan asked. I looked at him, but out of the corner of my eye I saw it, under the table, Mia's hand slowly covering his. No need, I said, getting up and leaving without another word. I called a friend and asked them to meet me out for drinks. Halfway through the night, tipsy and dazed, I heard Zane, elbows propped on the table, ask, What's going on with you lately? Something bothering you? I stayed silent, just pouring myself drink after drink. Work was going well. I was fair-skinned, good-looking. My husband was someone I'd secretly loved for years. Life was stable. Jenny, with all that going for you, even if you're not the definition of a winner, you're definitely one of fate's favorites. What could you possibly be upset about? But I couldn't say it out loud. And Zane didn't press me. He just sat with me, drinking in silence. I threw up twice in the bathroom, clutching the toilet bowl. By the time I was completely drunk and barely conscious, Zane, who had no idea what else to do, called Ryan. When Ryan arrived at the bar to pick me up, I was standing under a lamppost by the door, completely still like a statue. But the moment I saw him, the tears just started falling. Ryan froze for a second, then pulled a tissue from his pocket and gently wiped away my tears. I didn't flinch, I just stared at him blankly. You look a lot like someone I'm in love with, I said. Ryan chuckled. Oh yeah? What's their name? He burst out laughing, his smile blooming like a night blooming Sirius in the dark. I looked at him, my head spinning slightly. The alcohol made me feel unusually bold, the urge to confess surging in me like never before. You know, I said, I've liked him for a really long time, a very, very long time. I just never had the courage to tell him. How long is a really long time? What year is it now? Ryan told me the year, and I started counting on my fingers, thinking and rethinking, adding and subtracting. It took me a while to get it right. 10 years, I finally said. The light above us fell across Ryan's hair, making the strands seem almost translucent. His beautiful face froze in place. You don't believe me? I asked. He shook his head. I couldn't let it go. Fueled by alcohol and stubborn pride, I grabbed my phone and opened my private photo album. I mistyped the password a few times, clumsily fumbling with the letters. The prompt was from years ago. The person I like is, a question from when I was a naive teenage girl. I entered 2 letters, and there it was. Ryan's youthful face appeared before us on the screen. Look at this, I said, tapping on one photo. It was a picture I had saved from our school website. It captured Ryan in the final sprint of a long-distance race. I zoomed in and found my own back in the crowd. He was running that day, and I had gone to bring him water. But there were too many people, and I couldn't get through. In the end, I never got to hand him the bottle. I only saw him take water from another girl. It actually made me really sad in that moment. But later, while browsing the school website, I found this photo. Even though I never gave him the water, at least we appeared in the same frame. I laughed, remembering how I'd held onto that bottle like an idiot for the rest of the day, never letting go. It was like buying your favorite cake with joy, only to get home and find it crushed. I'd felt down all day until I saw that picture. Then it was like I'd come back to life, full of energy again. At least I was there in the moment he won. And this one, I said, pulling up another image. I found it in my mom's photo album. It was from my 10th birthday. Ryan came to celebrate with me. We held hands and performed for the adults. Ryan was wearing a tiny suit, and I had on a fluffy party dress. We stood side by side, looking like a perfect little pair. Later, I used that photo as my social media cover. My friends all said I was adorable as a kid. Back then, I used to wonder, if he ever saw that picture, what would he think? Should I lie and say it's because the photo was just too cute? Or should I tell the truth, that I wanted him to notice, to realize how much I liked him? But he never did. He never noticed. 10 years is such a long, long time. And yet, all these little details I've carried with me for so long still feel so vivid. There's too much to say. My mouth went dry from talking, and I still hadn't even begun to explain everything about my 10 years of unspoken love. And just as I was finishing, Ryan suddenly pulled me into his arms. His embrace was warm. Through the fabric of his clothes, I could feel not just his body heat, but the rapid, uneven thudding of his heart. He held me so tightly, his hands trembling slightly. "I love you." His breath brushed against my ear, warm and soft, laced with a faint nasal tone. "Jenny, I love you too." Wrapped in Ryan's arms, the tears on my face had long since dried. The cold wind blew, sobering me up in an instant. I looked up at the blinding white light above us, then whispered, "Liar, Ryan, you big liar." When I woke up, my head was pounding like it was about to split open. Ryan appeared in the doorway of the bedroom as soon as he heard movement. "Jenny, I made you some hangover soup." I rubbed my temples and forced myself to get up. After washing up, I sat at the dining table. Breakfast and the soup were already laid out for me. I downed the soup in one go, only to realize he'd placed a piece of candy next to the bowl. "Jenny?" Ryan came downstairs holding a tie, smiling at me. I froze for a second, then reached out to help him tie it. He took the opportunity to lean down and kiss my forehead, murmuring sweetly near my ear, "Wait for me to come back." Just like when we had first gotten married. While I was still dazed, he had already walked out the door. Not long after he left, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated but answered. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was Mia. She asked to meet. On the way there, I imagined all kinds of ways she might start the conversation. Maybe she'd declare boldly, like in some dramatic novel, that Ryan only ever loved her. Or maybe she'd arrogantly demand I step aside. But none of that happened. Mia arrived before I did. When she saw me, she simply greeted me and then started talking about her history with Ryan. I was with Ryan for 2 years. He always treated me so well. And honestly, I always knew who he was. When I was little, I was jealous of him. He had a perfect family. His parents loved him so much. My mom never cared about me. Not really. Until she met Ryan's dad. Sometimes when he came over, he'd bring me little gifts, but I knew it was only because he loved my mom. She paused before continuing. But then I got together with Ryan. He took care of me, made sure I was eating enough, sleeping okay. He'd always say, "Don't worry, I'm here." He helped me fix everything. He felt like a gift from the universe after all the coldness I grew up with. I really thought we'd be together forever. Her voice caught slightly. Until his mom found out, she threatened to kill herself unless Ryan left me. Mia's voice suddenly grew sharp, emotional. "He gave me up." She looked straight at me, her voice now trembling with desperation. "Will you give him back to me? Please, I really love him. I do." Tears streamed down her face, splashing onto the table. Her voice cracked with heartbreak, but there was still that unshakable certainty in her, like someone who had always been the one chosen, the one loved. I didn't say anything. I brought my hand to my chest, and for some reason it didn't ache like it used to. "Why don't you tell Ryan?" I asked her. "Tell him to divorce me, to be with you." Mia blinked. Tears clung to her lashes, half fallen. "I don't want to make things hard for him." I let out a soft laugh and looked at her calmly. "Do you really love Ryan?" "I do," she said without hesitation. I smiled. "Then tell me, what's Ryan's favorite food?" Mia froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Not a word came out. If they truly loved each other, then why was one still hesitating, while the other didn't even know the most basic things? Maybe I smiled too mockingly, because Mia's face flushed with shame. The soft vulnerability in her expression disappeared completely. "Sophia, if you're gonna be like this, then don't blame me. He still can't let me go." Mia was the kind to act fast. That evening, Ryan came home later than usual. He smelled faintly of peach perfume, the same scent I had once smelled on Mia. I was curled up on the couch watching anime. Ryan changed out of his shoes and tried to pull me into a hug, but I shifted away. On the screen, the female lead was confessing to the male lead. The guy hesitated, and the girl demanded to know if he actually loved her. I turned to look at Ryan. His eyes were lowered slightly, reflecting only me in them, just like when we were kids and he'd help me with homework or sit beside me watching cartoons. "Ryan," I said seriously, "I've always believed that if I were to get married, it had to be to someone I truly loved." Ryan smiled and bent down to scoop me up from the couch. He looked up at me slightly, his eyes sincere and full of quiet devotion. "Jenny, I'm already married to the one I love." I lowered my eyes, lying through my teeth. Mia hadn't disappeared from our lives, not even close. Even though Ryan tried hard to keep up the illusion of calm, the cracks were starting to show. His phone rang in the middle of the night, waking me from my hazy sleep. When he saw I was awake, he looked apologetic. "Jenny, sorry, did I wake you? Something urgent came up. I need to step out for a bit." I opened my eyes just in time to see Ryan hurriedly getting dressed. This was getting out of hand. "You should sleep. I'll be back soon." I nodded and lay there in bed, eyes wide open, watching him disappear through the bedroom door. Then came the loud slam of the front door downstairs. I couldn't sleep at all. The thing is, I heard Mia's voice on the other end of the line. Soft, delicate, tearful. "There's someone outside my window, knocking on the door, on the glass. I'm really scared. Ryan, can you come be with me? I'm all alone. I'm really scared." Even a child knows that if you're in danger, you call the police. But she chose to call someone else's husband. On the day the weather forecast predicted the first snowfall of the year, Ryan and I had originally planned to have dinner together. When I went to his office around noon to meet him, he hesitated before speaking. "Jenny, an old friend of mine, just got back from overseas. We haven't seen each other in years. I might not be able to make it tonight." "No problem," I said, watching him smile. But from that smile, I caught a subtle flicker of relief on his face. "I'll come pick you up tonight then. Where are you going?" I gave him the name of the place. Ryan nodded. It was a restaurant on the central plaza, right by the floor-to-ceiling windows. A pianist was playing in the main hall, the music flowing gently like water. Even though it had been years, things didn't feel awkward between me and Zane. We chatted non-stop throughout dinner. By the time evening came, snow had begun to fall. Large, soft flakes drifted down from the sky. "Wow," Zane said with surprise. "I just got back and already caught the first snow. I'm lucky." I smiled and glanced outside at the square. The downtown streets were filled with pedestrians, and several couples were walking hand in hand. Among the falling snow, I saw one girl suddenly lean in to kiss her boyfriend. I watched them, but then suddenly froze. The restaurant was warm. The heating turned up high, but I felt like I'd fallen into an ice cellar. My whole body stiffened. "What is it?" Zane followed my gaze. The moment he saw the couple kissing, his expression shifted in understanding. "They say if you kiss during the first snow, you'll be happy together forever. Jenny, are you thinking about your husband? It's sweet of you to come spend such a romantic night with me instead." I didn't respond right away. I just sat there, dazed, staring as the couple pulled apart, then walked away hand in hand down the snowy street. Finally, I said softly, "That's my husband." Ryan had sent me a message while I was on the plane. I didn't see it until I landed. My phone was filled with missed calls and unread texts. Judging by the time, it had been the middle of the night back home. It used to be like that too. If Ryan couldn't reach me, he'd panic. This trip had been a last-minute work assignment. Right after saying goodbye to Zane, I submitted my request and left so quickly, I didn't even have time to pack properly. I wouldn't be back for at least 10 days, maybe longer. I replied to Ryan, telling him I was out of town on business. He responded immediately, "Good, come back soon." Mia moved faster than I expected. Almost the very next day, she sent me a message, an almost mirror selfie of her wrapped in a towel. It was clearly taken in the bathroom at Ryan's house. My reflexes were quick. I tapped to save the photo before she could delete it. She unsent it a second later. "Don't waste your time. I'm not filing for divorce. If you want something, go talk to Ryan yourself." The project wrapped up more than 2 weeks later. My life gradually returned to its former rhythm. The day I flew back to the country, Ryan came to pick me up at the airport. We hadn't seen each other in over 10 days, yet it felt like there was a thick curtain between us. He did most of the talking on the drive back. I only responded here and there, distracted, my eyes fixed on my phone as I replied to work messages. "Jenny, has something happened lately?" he asked gently. I was just about to respond when his phone rang. Maybe he had it set to speaker by default, because the moment he answered, Mia's voice filled the car's enclosed space, soft and sticky, tinged with drunkenness. "Ryan, I think I drank too much at the bar. Can you come pick me up? My head feels dizzy, my legs are weak, and someone keeps staring at me. I'm scared." I looked up and saw Ryan watching me in the rearview mirror, his expression tense. "I'm sorry, go." I cut off his refusal before he could say more, meeting his gaze in the mirror, my expression calm. "Jenny, he started, clearly wanting to explain. "I know, your friend's daughter." I opened the door and stepped out of the car. "I need to stop by the office, go pick her up." Ryan came back sooner than I expected. By then, I had already moved everything from the master bedroom into the guest room. "Jenny, I dropped her off and came right back. I've been having trouble sleeping lately," I said, as I placed the last item in the guest room. "It's better if we sleep separately." Work started piling up again, and I got home later and later. Ryan would wait up, the lights always left on for me. The moment I walked through the door, he'd ask, "Are you hungry? Want some late-night food?" I'd shake my head, walk past him without a word, and go straight to my room. I didn't make small talk. I could feel his eyes on my back, filled with confusion and silent frustration, but I just didn't have the energy to think about him and Mia anymore. Things stayed that way until the night we attended a business banquet together. I clung to Ryan's arm, weaving through the crowd. Thanks to him, I got to meet a few potential major clients. When Ryan introduced me, he'd say, "This is my wife," and others would praise how well matched we looked. I only smiled shyly against his shoulder, playing the part perfectly. "You two look like you're very in love." I smiled but said nothing. As soon as we got in the car after the banquet, I immediately let go of his hand. Ryan looked startled for a moment, his arm still held in the shape of how I had been holding it. He stood frozen, staring at me. "Jenny?" But the moment he saw my calm, indifferent face, the rest of his words died in his throat. I leaned against the car window in the back seat, exhausted. "Why aren't you sitting in the front?" he asked. I rubbed my temples and gave a vague reply. "I don't feel like it." The drive home was silent. After changing my shoes, I started heading back to my room. "Jenny, is your insomnia getting any better?" "Not really," I replied without turning my head. But then he grabbed my hand, tight, his fingers trembling slightly with tension. "Jenny, please just tell me what's going on. Why did you suddenly want to sleep in separate rooms? Why are you getting home later and later? Why do you act so close to me in public but not even say a word to me at home? Why? Why does it feel like you don't love me anymore?" "Let go." My voice was flat. He finally let go of my hand. Red marks had already spread across my wrist. I rubbed it gently until the pain dulled. "Is there anything you want to confess?" I asked, locking eyes with him. "What?" Ryan looked confused. I stared at him for a long moment. "Like kissing the one you love during the first snowfall will bring happiness for a lifetime?" Ryan's face instantly went pale, his shoulders collapsing inch by inch. "So, you saw." Mia made sure to pick the most visible spot. It was pretty hard not to. I forced a smile, but it probably looked more painful than crying. "Ryan, that night when I was drunk, I told you I'd liked you for 10 years. You hugged me and said you loved me too. Was that the same feeling you had when you replied to that post 2 years ago, telling someone else that you loved her?" "No," he said quickly, panic rising in his voice. "It wasn't the same. I gave a small, cold smile. I shut the bedroom door firmly, cutting off whatever Ryan was trying to say. I didn't need answers anymore. I never brought up divorce. In fact, Ryan started treating me better than ever, clinging to me more tightly with each passing day. He made me breakfast before work, picked me up afterward, brought home flowers and my favorite foods, even bought all sorts of thoughtful, high-end gifts he knew I liked. At the office, my coworkers would tease me. "Jenny, Your husband spoils you so much. What's your secret? I would just smile in response. Sometimes Mia would call, but Ryan would discreetly hang up before I could even react. Then one day, Mia showed up again, same coffee shop as last time. But the arrogance she'd once flaunted was gone. Her confidence had been completely soaked through by something else: desperation. "What did you do?" she asked, staring me down. Her fingers clenched around the cup, knuckles pale. I took a casual sip of coffee and looked at her with a faint smile. "I didn't do anything, just told him how much I used to love him, and then walked away." "Why?" she snapped. "Why didn't you divorce him? Why didn't you step aside and let us be together?" One couldn't have what she wanted, the other couldn't win him back. "Isn't this better?" I asked calmly. "Jenny, he doesn't love you, he loves me." Mia lost control and shouted at me, her voice full of anger and panic. She repeated it again and again, but the more she did, the more empty it sounded. "Is that so?" I set my coffee down and stood. "Then convince Ryan to divorce me." "Can you do that?" Valentine's Day. Ryan asked me out for a date, and I said yes. He chose the same restaurant, that restaurant. The moment he arrived, his expression stiffened slightly, but he quickly masked it. He placed a gift box on the table, one I'd seen before. "It really suits you." "Thank you," I said as I lifted the lid. Inside was a pink diamond necklace, clearly expensive. "Sorry, I've been so busy lately, I didn't have time to get you something sooner." "It's fine." Ryan smiled, clearly trying to please me. "You being here with me tonight is the best gift." His words were drowned out by the sudden splash of red wine. The white shirt he wore was instantly stained. Crimson dripped from his hair and landed on the tablecloth. I calmly opened my camera and began recording, pointing it straight ahead. "Ryan." Mia's wine glass had shattered on the floor, broken into pieces. Her voice was shrill, almost hysterical. "You're spending Valentine's Day with him? Why haven't you answered my messages? Have you changed? Have you really fallen in love with him?" Ryan didn't respond. He stood up and took a towel from a passing waiter, wiping the wine from his face. All around us, people stared, whispering, watching the drama unfold. And yet, I just sat there, unfazed, watching the scene as if it were a performance. "Sorry," Ryan said, not even looking at Mia. He turned to me. "Jenny, there was a little incident. Waitstaff were already moving in to block Mia. Don't be upset, I'll make it up to you." Mia suddenly turned her gaze toward me, furious. "You planned this, didn't you? You sent me that message on purpose. You wanted me to get angry. You wanted me to come and make a scene." Her rage boiled over. She grabbed a wine bottle from the table and hurled it at me. In that split second, someone stepped in front of me. The dull thud of glass hitting flesh sent a chill down my spine. I was wrapped tightly in Ryan's arms. I could hear his heartbeat, loud and fast, thudding in my ear. But my face remained blank. Mia was restrained, still holding the pose of someone mid-throw. Ryan turned around and, without hesitation, slapped her, hard. "I haven't changed," he said coldly. "Mia, she's my wife." The surrounding crowd gasped. I heard whispers around us. Some were muttering that Mia was crazy. She's the mistress and still dares to show up in front of the wife? Mia stood there, pale-faced, crying uncontrollably as she looked at Ryan. The chaos finally ended after the waitstaff escorted her out. Neither of us had any appetite left. Ryan looked completely disheveled, and we left without finishing our meal. While we waited for the car at the entrance, Ryan turned to me. "I'm sorry, Jenny. I wanted today to be special, but it turned into a mess. If you're free tomorrow, maybe we can." "I'm not." I cut him off. The air suddenly felt thinner. I absent-mindedly scrubbed through the video I had just recorded. When I looked up, I found Ryan staring at me. The dark stains still marred his white shirt, and strands of hair had fallen over his face. His beautiful eyes, always so calm, were now clouded and flickering, like turbulent waves or broken shards of light. I saw a trace of red at the corner of his eye as his voice cracked. "Why aren't you angry?" I'd known Ryan for over 20 years. I'd chased after him for more than 10. He had always been gentle, always calm, always in control, dependable like an older brother. He stepped forward and held my wrist, but he didn't dare grip it tightly. His shadow fell over me like a fragile glass tower on the verge of collapse. He said, "The address was from you," Ryan whispered. "Jenny, why aren't you mad? Blame me, yell at me, hit me, fight with me. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Just please." He leaned his head on my shoulder. His breath was warm and trembling against my skin. Please, Jenny. Anything. Anything at all. Just don't leave me. The late winter wind was still cold against my face. His familiar sandalwood scent surrounded me, and his arms were wrapped so tightly around me that his hot breath spilled into the collar of my coat. But I stood there, stiff as wood, unmoving. Ryan didn't let go. I knew he was waiting for me to say something, but I said nothing. The next day, Ryan acted as if nothing had happened. He woke up early and made breakfast like usual. I left in a rush and didn't have time to eat it. After I arrived at the office, he had food delivered to me. When a coworker walked into my office, he stared at the spread and practically drooled. "Jenny, you gonna finish all this?" I smiled. "Are you hungry? Want some?" His eyes lit up. "Thanks, Jenny." He came over and picked up the takeout, but then noticed a note on the container. Ryan had written, "Make sure you eat well." Just as my coworker was about to say something, I reached out and tore the note off, crumpling it and tossing it in the trash. He shut his mouth and quietly went back to eating. That evening, Ryan came to pick me up again, as if he didn't have a job of his own. His car waited at the office entrance, once again drawing envy from coworkers who praised me for finding such a great husband. I said my goodbyes and got into the back seat. Ryan handed me a warm bottle of pear tea. "You sounded like you had a cough yesterday." "Thanks," I said, taking it and placing it by the car door without a second glance. We acted like nothing had ever happened. Everything was peaceful on the surface. When we got home, I got out of the car first. Ryan didn't follow. He only came up after I had already reached the door. He was holding the thermos he had given me earlier. Sorry, I left it by the side door and forgot." He didn't say anything. He stood at the bottom of the steps, looking up at me. With the light behind him, his face was cloaked in shadow. I couldn't make out his expression. It took a long time before he finally spoke. "Jenny, if you're not asking for a divorce, it means you still care about me, right?" I looked away from his face, my gaze falling into the void. "No," I said, smiling. "You're wrong." "Why do you have to force the question? Why do you have to make me say it out loud, that I don't love you anymore?" Adults understand things without needing them spelled out. We keep a dignified curtain over the truth. So why insist on ripping it open? In the adult world, too many things are entangled in interest. My love for Ryan had already died the day I finished reading that post. Strip away the feelings, and what remained was a cold calculation between marriage and divorce, which would benefit me more. In the absence of anyone new stirring my heart, staying in this marriage brought me greater advantages. The network and resources Ryan could offer were reason enough to stay. Business people chase profits, and if love is supposed to be pure, untainted by gain, then once love is gone, all that's left is strategy. That's all I had left for Ryan. I looked at him and smiled. My eyes didn't flinch or waver. I'm just making the most of what's available. Don't you get it? There's no love in our marriage anymore. What's left is calculation in disguise, pathetic attempts to make up for the past, and a bond held together by law, cold, legal, and empty. Ryan's posture faltered. I thought he'd get angry. I thought he'd lash out. But he didn't. He took a deep breath, and I could see him swallow down every emotion he was about to spill. When he finally spoke, his voice was so soft, it felt like the flutter of butterfly wings, so fragile, like it could break at any second. "It's okay, as long as you don't bring up divorce." "Not for now." I smiled faintly and cruelly clipped the butterfly's wings. "But if I meet someone else who makes my heart race again, that might change." No, you can't." Ryan unraveled in that instant. "You can't do that, Jenny. I love you. You can't love someone else." I didn't bother to watch him fall apart. I opened the door and walked inside. Love isn't something you can control. But once someone's hurt you, there's no reason to keep holding on. The 10 years I spent secretly loving Ryan weren't fake. But I've always known, before you can love someone else, you have to love yourself more. If I had truly loved him to the point of losing all reason, I wouldn't have chosen my future without hesitation when I went abroad. Love is never a smooth road. You stumble, you fall. But I've always had the courage to love, and the strength to walk away. Because I will always love myself the most. Epilogue. When Ryan had a high fever, it was Zane who eventually called for help. He tried to call me, again and again. All he heard was a busy tone. "Sorry, the number you dialed is currently in another call." He hung up and redialed. Again and again. He couldn't get through. In the end, delirious from fever, he dropped his phone on the floor. He didn't know if that last call ever connected. When he woke up, he was in the hospital. Ryan opened his eyes and stared blankly at the white wall for a long time. Then someone spoke beside him. "You're awake." It was me. I reached out to check his forehead for warmth, then poured him a glass of water. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, until he felt the cold touch against his skin. He tried to speak, but his throat burned. He drank the water I gave him and felt a little better. It had been a long time since he'd seen this version of me. At home, we were like strangers under one roof. Even when I treated him politely, he knew it was no more than courtesy reserved for people I barely knew. "Jenny," he began, eager. He wanted to ask if I got his call. If it was me who brought him to the hospital, if I had stayed by his bedside all this time. But before he could get a word out, I asked calmly, "Are you hungry? Want something to eat?" "Spare rib soup," he said. It was intentional. Back when I got sick, he would make spare rib soup for me. Later on, I had joked that I'd learn how to cook so that if he ever got sick, I could take care of him too. He'd given in and taught me, so now he asked for it, just to stir up old memories. But my finger didn't pause as I tapped my phone screen. I nodded. "I ordered it. It should be here soon." Ryan froze. He had been hoping, maybe even expecting I'd make it for him. I stood up. "If you need anything, just press the call button." The food arrived not long after. Ryan stared at me, voice full of tension. "Where are you going?" "I have a meeting this afternoon. I'm leaving now." I walked to the door, calm and composed. Ryan wanted to stop me, but the fever had drained him and his head was still foggy. As I passed, he reached out and tugged at the hem of my coat. When I turned back and looked at him, Ryan asked, "Can you stay with me for a while?" He must have realized instantly that he'd said the wrong thing because my expression changed in that moment. But he quickly steadied himself. "Sorry," I said calmly. "That meeting is important." He didn't say anything, but I could feel the question in his eyes. What kind of meeting could be more important than someone sick in a hospital bed? Maybe he wanted to ask why I wasn't like I used to be. Why I wasn't gentle with him anymore. Why I didn't keep the promise to take care of him. Why I no longer said I loved him, but he didn't say a word, just let go of my sleeve and said, "Sorry, go ahead." Back then, he probably believed that as long as we were still legally married, as long as we still shared the same last name, he had time to win me back. After all, I did used to love him deeply. But he was wrong. No matter how kind or thoughtful he became, I no longer responded. In public, we still looked like a perfect couple. But behind closed doors, we were nothing more than polite strangers. The breakfasts he made, I never touched. The gifts he gave, I sometimes returned with something random, without thought, without meaning. Still, he convinced himself it was okay, that one day I would soften. But the more he gave, the colder I felt. Every time we came home from a gathering or family visit, he would act like nothing had changed, while I peeled my hand away from his, the second we stepped inside, leaving only a faint trace of warmth on his arm. That contrast must have been excruciating. He lost control more than once. He begged me to yell at him, to call him names. He even held my hand and slapped his own face with it, his eyes red, begging me to resent him. But I just pulled my hand away and said softly, "Don't make a scene." I saw it in his eyes. He felt like a criminal caught in the act, like the blame had always been his alone. And maybe it was. But regret and pain don't fix anything. Eventually, he stopped hoping for love and told himself as long as I didn't ask for a divorce, everything was fine. Even if I was only using him, even if it was all for convenience, even if there was no love left. As long as I stayed by his side, as long as I remained his wife in name, it was enough for him. But I knew. I saw it in his eyes. That fear, that dread that someday I might fall in love with someone else. He spent 2 days in the hospital. I didn't go back the second day. When he got home, I wasn't there either. He sent me messages for hours before I finally replied and told him I was away on a business trip. The last time we really talked was half a month ago. He had asked if I had time. He had gotten 2 tickets to a musical. "I don't like musicals," I said. "Sorry." He probably stared at that message for a long time. I used to go with him anyway. I used to walk home with him hand in hand, smiling and saying, "That was fun." Not because of the show, because we were together. Now, he typed something, deleted it, then typed again. He wrote, "I'm out of the hospital," then deleted it. What he sent instead was, "Safe travels." I didn't reply. That evening, the city was bright and noisy, filled with lights and dinner scents and families gathered around their tables, talking and laughing. But Ryan didn't turn on the lights. He sat alone in the dark. He finally realized how empty the house was. He'd never felt that before. When I wasn't busy, I liked curling up on the couch to watch anime. It was a habit I picked up back when I used to stay over at his place. After I returned from abroad, he thought I had changed. Grown up, matured. But to him, that version of me probably felt like a stranger. Later, I realized he hadn't really changed. He still loved anime, still liked calling him Brother Ryan. He still laughed loudly when he was happy, and was easily comforted when he was sad. Truth was, Ryan was thrilled by these things. At work, I was competent and confident. Everyone praised me for being independent. But only Ryan knew that I could still be childish sometimes, that I liked watching shows meant for kids, that I cried and laughed at fictional characters. Only Ryan knew. And he cherished that, because he was the only one who did. The night I came back from my business trip, I didn't tell him when I'd be home. Ryan happened to run into me downstairs. He saw me standing with a man face to face. We were chatting and I was smiling, a genuine smile he hadn't seen from me in a long time. The man had his eyes lowered slightly, his demeanor cool and reserved. But when he looked at me, there was an undeniable softness. The two of us weren't standing too close, but there was an unspoken harmony between us that made it feel like no one else could step in. Ryan suddenly felt a surge of jealousy rise in his chest, sour and bitter and suffocating. He wanted to storm over and punch the man in the face. But if he did, I would be angry. He wanted to walk up and wrap his arm around my shoulder, to thank the man for bringing his wife home. But his feet wouldn't move. Beneath the jealousy was something even more terrifying. Fear. The sword of Damocles hovered above him, trembling. Would it be him? Was that the one I'd fall in love with? Just then I turned and walked toward him. Before my hand even reached the doorknob, Ryan instinctively turned away and started heading inside. When I stepped through the door, he was standing there, pale, forcing a smile. He chose to run away. While I was in the shower, Ryan went through my phone. He knew it was low of him, but he couldn't stop himself. He just couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that I might be falling for someone else. My phone's lock screen was still the same gesture it had always been. I hadn't changed it. He easily unlocked it. At the top of my WeChat conversations was someone he knew, Zhao Zheng. He clicked in and scanned a few lines. Zhao had messaged, "Please, just get divorced already. Every time I see your husband, I want to stab him twice." I'd replied with a goofy dog face emoji. "Zhao, what type do you like? I'll introduce you to someone." "That senior of yours? He's liked you for ages," I replied with another dog emoji. Ryan backed out of that chat and looked for the so-called senior, labeled plainly as Professor Xie. There was no indication of anything personal. He opened the thread. The last message from me, "Thanks for dropping me off." Professor Xie replied, "Not a problem." The water was still running in the bathroom. Ryan kept scrolling through our messages in a frenzy. We'd been talking frequently, but most of it was about work. The occasional personal lines were brief and careful. Neither of us crossed the line. Everything stayed proper. As Ryan stared blankly at the screen, a new message from Professor Shea popped up. "I got 2 tickets to the One Piece exhibition." Ryan knew One Piece was my favorite anime. He already had a sinking feeling about what the next message would say. His first impulse, driven by anger, was to grab my phone and reply, "She's not going." But the next line that popped up wasn't, "Let's go together." It was, "You can go with a friend?" Ryan froze. He wished that they were sending flirty messages, that Professor Xi was brazenly flirting even though he knew I was married, that I was trying to get revenge by cheating too. That way, at least they'd be even. He wouldn't even blame me. They could just call it quits, wipe the slate clean. But the more proper and respectful those messages were, the more disgusting he felt. Look at that, he was the only one who ever messed up. The only disgraceful one. I might have realized he'd looked through my phone, but he didn't lash out. Every day, Ryan lived in a quiet panic, the sense of losing me growing heavier with each breath. And yet, he felt powerless to stop it. No matter how good he was to me, no matter how much effort he made, it was like tossing stones into the sea. No ripple, no echo. Nothing came back. I brought up the divorce on a warm, sunny afternoon. I brought the divorce papers with me, sat across from him, and smiled gently as I said, "Let's get a divorce." It fell. The sword he'd been dreading for so long finally fell. In that moment, it felt like it split him in two from head to toe. His heart, now lying in the left half of him, beat slower and slower, until it seemed like it might stop entirely. His body broken, his breath caught. He felt like he was truly standing at the edge of death. Is it him? It took him a while to find his voice. Even when he did, it didn't sound like him at all. "Is it Professor Shy? You've fallen in love with him, haven't you?" "Oh." I was surprised, then smiled softly. "No, I haven't fallen in love with him. I just want to give him a chance." I smiled again. A chance for him and for me. After all, he made me smile in a way I haven't in a long time. Before I can start something new, I have to sort out what's left of the old. Isn't that right? It was like Ryan had something lodged in his throat. He wanted to tear the divorce papers into pieces, shred them until they were dust. But after a long silence, all he managed to say was, "I understand. I'll read it over and sign it." I was a little surprised, then smiled with genuine warmth. "Okay, I'll wait." He wanted to argue, but he was afraid I'd hate him for it. So this was the only way to end things with at least a shred of dignity left. Later, Ryan modified the agreement. He gave me most of the assets. When I called to ask if that was supposed to be some kind of compensation, he just chuckled. He didn't say anything. It was a lie. He just wanted to leave me with a better impression of him at the end, even though things between us had already become such a mess. On the day we finalized the divorce, I came alone. And I left alone. As I walked out of the office, Ryan asked, "Should I give you a ride?" I shook my head calmly. "I'm walking. Jeng Jeng is waiting for me." He stood at the door, watching me walk farther and farther away, until I disappeared from sight. It was a beautiful day, blue sky, warm light, but somehow he felt absolutely terrible. Completely, utterly terrible. He had wanted to ask me just one thing. He wanted to ask whether I had ever truly blamed him. But there was no point in asking, because I wouldn't care. I never lingered on things that were already over. Just like that time years ago, when he came to my house to bring fruit. He overheard my mother asking, "Have you made up your mind? Are you really going abroad? What about the person you like? Are you willing to leave him behind?" And I had smiled, a light, girlish voice full of clarity and sweetness. "Mom," I said, "when it comes to things that aren't about family, my future has never been a multiple-choice question." That was who I had always been, unwavering, resolute.